Welcome to Praying Through the Bible, number 33, Exodus 18, verses 13 through 26, a prayer that is seeking advice. Do we want to be a good advice giver and taker? Here's God's advice as to how. Tiresomely, from morning to evening, Moses is surrounded giving advice, Exodus 18, verses 13 and 14. And that's where we learn the very first trait of a great advisor, willingness to be worn out for God and others, chapter 18, verse 18. When Israelites come to Moses, they are seeking a man to inquire of God, chapter 18 and verse 15. This is a type of prayer. Moses would teach them God's statutes and laws, chapter 18 and verse 16. This shows a second trait of a good advice giver. Good advice is God's instructions. But let's take two asides. The first aside is a trait then of a bad decision maker is not knowing God's revealed mind. And a second aside, a trait of a good decision maker is asking the right person. Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, sees Moses' burden and immediately concludes there must be a better way. Chapter 18, verse 17. He literally says, it is not good. Then Jethro gives advice on how to give advice, chapter 18, verse 19. More experts are needed. Moses listens, chapter 18, verse 24. That shows a third trait of a good advice giver, the willingness to receive guidance even when they haven't asked. Helpers need help. The wisest are not the only wise. What system does Jethro suggest? First, training. Moses will instruct men about the statutes and laws of God and how they are to live and what they must do. Chapter 18, verse 20. These judges are teachers, not just opinion givers. Second, qualifications. Knowing or knowledge is not everything. Character is essential. They are to be able men, God-fearing, trustworthy, and hate bribes, chapter 18, verse 21. 3, selection. Chapter 18, verse 21 and 25, Moses selects the men. He doesn't choose the most popular. He doesn't choose his friends, but he chooses those that are qualified. Fourth, these new advice givers are set as officials of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. Chapter 18, verse 25. And fifth, work. These men are to judge. Being selected is not a ceremonial position. It is a relationship with the people through God. Does all of this sound familiar for Paul's instructions to Timothy and Titus for elders over churches? Where he teaches basically the same thing. And that is training. That is qualifications. That is having the people select. That is organizing them, appointing them, that is, and then letting them work. What must not be forgotten through all of this is the ones needing advice are inquiring of God by asking others, chapter 18 and verse 15 from Exodus. Seeking advice should be inquiring of God via knowledge of God's revealed mind and prayer. Giving advice should be speaking as God has already spoken. When praying, the verbal answers don't come directly from God, but from asking godly men and women for help, and sometimes even children. Psalm 8, verse 2, and Matthew 21, verse 16. What a responsibility. Too often when asking for advice, people are seeking permission. They are not pursuing wisdom, but seeking an accomplice. Too often the right advice is hard, so people keep asking until they hear easy. In that context of life, instead of asking God, people are telling God what's right and wrong, rewriting his words to suit their tastes. How conscious are we that when we seek help from others, we are inquiring of God, or should be inquiring of God? How do we know when the advice is good? When it's based upon God's revealed mind, chapter 18, verse 16 and 20, and 1 Corinthians chapter 2. Asking for advice is asking, what does God think? Giving advice is, this is what God thinks. What a responsibility. Asking advice is acquiring of God. Giving advice is speaking as God has spoken. May God give us the wisdom that we so severely lack. What a responsibility. What is our prayer challenge? Pray and study and seek out good and godly men and women. Pray we can become the type of person people seek out as they inquire of God. Pray that when we give advice, it is as if God is speaking through us. Start praying. This has been Praying Through the Bible number 33, Exodus 18, 13 through 26, a prayer that is seeking advice. If this has been a blessing to you, please subscribe and please share, and feel free to make any comments below. Thank you very much.